All right, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the STEM Files on OMSTV, live via YouTube. We are no longer on Blog Talk Radio. I repeat, we are no longer on Blog Talk Radio. I'm joined by my illustrious co-host, right-hand man. Well, first, I'm Tariq Muhammad, aka Magna Cardiac, Chairman and Chief Science Officer of Original Man Scientific. I'm joined by my right-hand man, illustrious co-host, Brainiac, Maniac.
Oh man, peace and blessings, everyone. Yes, I am Jabril Muhammad, aka Jabrilliant Engineer, Vice Chairman of Original Man Scientific and Materials Engineer. Happy to be here and can't wait to get it started.
Awesome, awesome. So this is the third edition of the STEM Files. We are joined by Arianne. Am I saying it right again?
Well, my full name is Arianne, but I go by Ari.
Ari. So we're joined by Ari. She is a Ph.D. candidate for organic chemistry at the University of Oklahoma, OKC. So we are going to just delve into the importance of Black people pursuing careers in chemistry, especially Black women pursuing careers in chemistry. So I'm going to let her take over from here, Ari.
Yes.
But just tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from.
Okay, so like you said, my name is Arianne. I'm originally from Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. And right now I go to the University of Oklahoma and I'm getting my PhD in organic chemistry. So the University of Oklahoma is actually about 45 minutes outside of OKC in Norman, Oklahoma. So I actually went to Dartmouth College in New Hampshire for undergrad, and I played basketball there for a couple of years. And while I was there, I was studying chemistry and biological anthropology, and I ended up double majoring coming out of there, and then I went straight into my PhD after graduating from undergrad. I didn't stop and get a master's or anything of that nature, so I was able to go straight from undergrad to the PhD program, and I'm in my fourth year, or actually I'm finishing up my fourth year. The semester's over in like a week. So I'm finishing up my fourth year and everything is looking really nice right now. Looking really nice. So
great, great, awesome. So let's talk a little bit about your upbringing. When you initially were introduced to science, was it always chemistry, or was it something that was, or did the love for chemistry kind of come later on?
No, so I was raised by a single mom for most of my life, and my mother actually got married whenever I was about, I'd say about 10 or 11. And so growing up, we didn't really have access to a lot of the resources that, you see in your typical person that's centralized in science. So growing up, I never was really fond of the Barbie dolls. I was never really fond of, brushing a doll's hair. I was always like begging my mother for a science kit. So there's like this store called TJ Maxx in Oklahoma. I don't know if you guys are okay.
Yeah, we got TJ Maxx.
There's a store called TJ Maxx, and they have like this toy section, and there was always like microscopes and like little doctor's kits. And I would like beg my mom for that for Christmas and stuff like that. So one year, my dad actually mailed one to me for Christmas, and it was like a microscope kit. And that was whenever I was about 8 years old. And then ever since then, I was just obsessed with science. But I played basketball. And so it didn't really correlate to me that you went to college for academics. I thought that college was to play sports. And I thought that the only reason I needed to go to college was so I could play basketball. But the caveat to that is I was always fairly smart. So I always had like 4.0 plus GPAs in high school. So whenever I was introduced to the Ivy League system and the fact that you could get recruited there to play sports, it was like, okay, let me do that. So then I got there and I was like, I want to be an engineer whenever I first got to Dartmouth.
Yes.
And they actually told me no. They're like, you cannot be an engineer and do sports. They're like, that's not possible. Yeah. So I really wanted to be a biomedical engineer. And so they kind of shot that dream in the foot during my freshman year. And so I was a little bit lost. And then I went on the pre-med track because they're like, if you want to do science, you can do pre-med. That's a little bit more reasonable. And so I started studying the pre-med courses, and then but they told me, they're like, whatever you do, don't select your major as a science major. They said do the pre-med requirements, but major in something that's not necessarily science related. And so my choice was anthropology or biological anthropology. And whenever I was doing it, it's like I liked it. I liked the anthropology, which, I mean, you could still consider anthropology a science if you wanted to. But I was never really like fully invested in it and fully interested in it. And so what actually happened is I hurt my knee pretty bad my sophomore year of undergrad. And I was like faced with a decision. I was like, do I keep on playing basketball or do I not? And I actually saw my doctor back at home in Oklahoma City. And he told me, he was like, if you keep on playing basketball, like if you want to have kids, you won't be able to run with your kids whenever you're 40 years old. He told me, he was like, you'll basically need like a total knee replacement. And so then I had to make that life decision. And so I chose not to play basketball anymore. And then a couple more months went by, and I had just finished taking organic chemistry, and I was in love with it. Yeah, I was totally in love with organic chemistry. I loved spending all the long hours in lab. So at Dartmouth, we're actually on the trimester system. And so you have to condense all the, is a typical semester like 15 weeks?
Oh, you got it down to the weeks. I just was suffering. So I don't,
it's hard to
really remember.
So I think a typical semester is around like 15 to 16 weeks. Well, at Dartmouth, we had to condense about that much material into 10 weeks. So if you think about your organic chemistry lab courses and condensing that down, our labs were on average about 6 to 8 hours. And so I love that. But like the students next to me are like dreading. They're like, oh, we got lab today. I was like, yes, we have lab today.
Right.
So it was in there where I was like, I really enjoy doing this. I really enjoy like sitting here, mixing chemicals, making stuff. And something like I've always told me, it was like, you're supposed to be majoring in chemistry. Like you're supposed to be doing this.
Right.
And so at the beginning of my junior year, I actually switched my major from biological anthropology to chemistry, and with only having taken general chemistry and organic chemistry. So I switched my major my junior year, and I ended up finishing the entire major, the chemistry major, my junior year and my senior year in college. And it was the hardest thing I ever did, but it was the most worthwhile thing I've ever done. So I'd say that's like my track to falling in love with the science. So I always loved science, but that love didn't actually come to fruition until I would say my junior year of college.
Okay, cool. Jabril?
So, since you talked a lot about that initial catalyst and the microscopes and that, kind of childlike love of science, kind of pushing you into STEM, and then, going into organic chemistry, taking those chemistry courses, how has that catalyst, or what propels you, how has that changed over time? Now that you're in your PhD, what is it that motivates you, at this point to continue to climb higher into your career and also the things you want to do further in life?
So, I would say my motivating factor to get up and work. So I work about 70 hours a week in the lab, and that's hard. And I'd say like the thing that motivates me the most is I just want to be an image. Like you have so many Black and brown girls out there that don't think you can do what I'm doing. So typically whenever you think about your sciences, you always hear, oh, you need to be a medical doctor. Like just be a medical doctor, like go get your MD and you're fine. And that's great. And I truly believe that's okay. But I want to show that there's other routes in science that are actually fruitful and fun to do and that can give you success in life. So right now what keeps me going is just that I want to show the girls that I mentor, and like I have a 16-year-old sister. So I want to show like my 16-year-old sister who is really, really good at math. I'm like, hey sis, like I can bring you into the lab and you can learn chemistry right now. Like you don't have to wait until you're in college. Like I can sit here, I can feed you all this knowledge. But what what also motivates me is I believe that the true testament of knowledge or the true testament of intellect is being able to translate what's inside of your brain in layman's terms. So if whenever you're talking and you can't talk in regular English, like if you can't talk your science to where someone can understand it, then that means that you truly don't understand it, or at least that's what I believe. And so the reason why I constantly study, the reason why I'm constantly in the lab is because I want to hone that so I can translate what I know to those people who don't necessarily know science. So if I can translate my dissertation pitch with all of this science verbatim to like my mom or my sister, then that means that I actually know what I'm doing. And so that's what really, really motivates me. It's just like that communication, breaking down that barrier of between like the real world, quote unquote, and science.
Cool.
I just want to highlight that, just say it again. So the true testament of intellect is being able to translate what's in your mind into layman's terms. You know, us as those, particularly, you know, in the engineering field, you know, people think, oh, y'all just talk and make things more complex. The goal of those who are charged with solving problems is to take the complex and bring it down to that can be readily digestible by those who may not understand. So if I take the complex and make it more complex, I'm doing myself and those who are listening to me a disservice as an engineer, as a STEM individual. So I think I'm so glad that you highlighted that. And that's just so relevant to how we can be better as those in STEM today. Tariq.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I was actually just talking to someone about that the other day. He wanted to write an article that he was doing on his genetic research in a newspaper. And he wanted to keep in mind that the newspaper is something that's made available to the general public. You know, and we're taught that if you can speak the language of the people, you'll be more successful, or whatever group you're talking to, you'll be more successful in that arena. When you right now you're pursuing your PhD in chemistry. Mm-hmm. When you say PhD candidate, for those who are listening or watching, they may not know, what do you mean by PhD candidate? What's that whole process entail?
Okay, so basically, whenever you first join a quote unquote PhD program, you start off as a PhD student. So you typically take coursework for about a year or two. And based upon that coursework, you then have to do your candidacy exams. So at the University of Oklahoma, you take about a year and a half worth of coursework. And then upon the culmination of that coursework, you do what's called a pre-candidacy exam. And so at our university, our pre-candidacy exam consists of selecting a topic from the literature and thoroughly diving into it and presenting it to our PhD committee. And so based on our ability to present that already found topic in the literature, they say, okay, now you can go forward to your candidacy exam. So then for our candidacy exam, you have to, it's a 3-component exam. So the first component is you have to come up with 3 original research ideas. So this was my first time that I actually had to go in the literature and find gaps in the literature. So whenever you're a scientist, or what's really specific to the PhD, and what I feel like a lot of people aren't understanding with the PhD, which is really frustrating because it's getting lost, is to get your PhD, you have to successfully add to the field that you're studying in a novel contribution.
Absolutely.
So I feel like if you didn't add something novel to your field, then should you actually have your PhD? No. That's my unpopular opinion. So basically you have to come up with 3 original research ideas, and then you have to thoroughly pitch them to your committee. So based upon that pitch, they tell you, okay, now you do these 2 topics. And then from those 2 topics, you have to create an abstract where you thoroughly show your hypothesis and how you would solve your research problem. And then they select that single topic. And then from that single topic, you then have to be able to give a full, almost grant-based document. So it's like you're almost writing a full research grant to start your independent career on that topic. And so you have to do a thorough literature survey, which is about, and then you have to write your research grant, which is typically about 10 to 15 pages long. And then you have to actually give your pitch. So it's almost like you're getting interviewed as if you're giving an interview at a university where you're trying to get a job at. So upon passing those 3 phases, you, at least at the University of Oklahoma, you get your candidacy. And that's whenever you actually become a PhD candidate, where you can then go on and finish your research. A lot of schools do culmination exams, I feel like they're called. Well, basically they take everything in the field and you have to take a written exam on it. But we got rid of that at OU, so.
That seems very involved.
Yeah, it's very thorough, but it gets you ready for the interview process. So if you do want to become a professor, you're actually really, really ready for that process.
Awesome. Wow.
What are some of the things that the interviewer is looking for in terms of you know, when you're going to, you know, explain what you're doing and why you want your PhD? What are some of the things they look for?
Are you talking about the interviewers into the PhD program?
Right. What do they look for in you, the applicant?
Okay, so for going to the PhD program, whenever I was getting interviewed, I feel like the main thing that they were looking for is your ability to become, not necessarily at that moment in time, but become an independent researcher. So a lot of us, whenever you're an undergrad and you're studying science, it's really easy to just do the problems that are given to you. So say, for instance, you get a math problem or you get a chemistry problem. Anybody can, after enough studying, anybody can just sit there and write the solution. But whenever it actually comes to identifying a research problem, and so what's really important in identifying a research problem is you have to identify an important problem. So anybody can find a gap in the literature and say this is a problem that needs to be found, but is that problem actually necessary to solve?
Right.
And from that necessity, that comes, okay, can this person one day become a actual contributing factor in our field? So I feel like whenever I was getting interviewed for different PhD programs, it was more so they were trying to probe my problem solving ability and whether or not I could identify if a problem was worth solving.
Wait, have you come across research by other candidates or by other people who have earned their PhDs already? Have you come across research that you would consider useless in a sense, or not really important to humanity?
So
you don't have to say any names, just, you know.
I'm not, so there, I have come across at least even, yes, I have come across some. I've been to some defenses, some PhD defenses, where I was in the audience and I was like, how is this person defending? And it's kind of frustrating because whenever you put your heart and soul into something as like a researcher yourself, and you see someone being able to quote unquote get by with lackluster, it's kind of frustrating because they're getting the same degree as you. And I feel like I feel like the PhD, I feel like that's the reason why the PhD is getting oversaturated, because you have a lot of advisors that are allowing the lack of novelty to be okay. And I'm not a big fan of that.
Why do you think that is? Like, why do you think they allow such mediocrity to just take place in the research industry?
So from my experience, what I'm seeing a lot that's happening is that, so a lot of professors are really, really focused on getting funding.
Yes, there it is.
And whenever you become focused on getting funding more so than you are focused on molding the next generation of scientists, that's where the issue comes. So at the end of the day, I say this all the time. I'm like, everyone doesn't deserve a PhD.
Ooh.
And there are some people that should exit out of the program because they cannot put up with the stresses. They don't have the package of intellect that's required to do that. But what's happening is professors are so focused on funding. So if they have 3 or 4 good students that are producing the data they need, they can give, you know, those other 4 or 5 students, you know, puppy projects. So they can give them the soft projects that, you know, that will produce enough data that can allow them to get a PhD or 1 or 2 publications, but it's not necessarily actually making an impact on the field. And I feel like that's where the oversaturation issue is coming in at. So yeah, that's my unpopular opinion.
And it should definitely be popular because it's so true.
Yes.
My research background is more, cardiovascular medicine.
Mm-hmm.
It has a lot of what I've seen, and this is just, like I said, what I've seen, is there's a lot of, Jabril, you remember when Victor was on the show, who was responsible for creating that the AIDS therapy?
Yes, sir.
So remember when he was talking about how some research really isn't necessary and that people just do it just to, be important or whatever.
Fill time. Yeah.
So
he was a proponent of the idea that
yeah,
in his mind, and he could delve into a little more, that there aren't many things that still need to be researched. Things have been generally fleshed out, and then there's more of the application that needs to occur on the research that's out here. There's a lot of research for the sake of, if for lack of a better term,
Definitely more applied research should be done. And do you see yourself doing that in the future, Ari, with your PhD in chemistry? Do you see yourself applying it into different areas?
So right now, it's funny that you're actually asking this question. So I have a couple different options in terms of my career. So right now I'm at the end of my 4th year. So typically in chemistry PhDs, at the end of your 4th year, you need to be settling where you're going to be going at the end of your 5th year, so upon graduation. So you really need to line up your job offers a year in advance for them to be quote unquote good job offers. So right now I have a fellowship with the government, the Department of Defense, where upon graduation, I have the choice to go work full-time with the Army doing forensic science research. So every summer I've actually been going and working with them, and which will then lead up to me working with them full-time. And so that's more so of the applying all of the research techniques for Department of Defense issues. Then I have the option of going to a postdoc, where that will put me on the projectile to become a faculty member and one day create my own research program. So right now I'm at that crossroads. It's like, do I pursue the more so strict applying found topics in chemistry to forensic science research, or do I go down the projectile of becoming a research professor and actually identifying a research gap in chemistry and pursuing that as my independent career? And right now it's kind of intimidating. It's really intimidating trying to figure out which one I want to go down, because with the postdoc and faculty positions, you do have to identify an independent research problem. And that's where what you were saying is there actually enough? Is there a problem still to be solved? Like, is there a worthwhile problem that actually needs effort in being solved? And whenever I look at like my PhD advisor, different faculty in the department that I'm in, just like fighting for funding, like literally the NIH and NSF, whenever you submit a grant to them, a grant proposal, they will find any nitpicking reason to not fund you. So I'm like, is anything worth funding anymore? And then that comes to, is there a research problem anymore? Or do we just need to be applying this stuff to actually solve existing problems? So do we apply what is already there? And so that's what's really, really kind of distracting me from pursuing a faculty position and becoming a professor. And maybe I should go down the application side with the government. So right now I haven't come to a final decision, but I'm definitely taking note of which ones I should pursue.
Awesome.
So, I'm glad we went down this route, because this is another parallel that we have. So I'm a materials engineer. I work for the Department of the Navy. Mm-hmm. I work at the Naval Surface Warfare Center, Philadelphia Division, here in South Philly. And one thing I can attest to is I'm an ISEA, so in-service engineering agent. So where I'll go on ships and everything, kind of doing the logistical things, kind of in-service testing, evaluation, research development, things of that nature. And there are a lot of things access-wise you get from ability to pursue, technical degrees, the ability to see hands-on as well as in-office work. But one thing I think that you highlighted, which is really key, is with what you're struggling with. It seems like, okay, am I just going to do research for the sake of research, or I'm going to really try to take what I've already researched, then apply it to the needs that need to be solved? And one thing with us at Original Man Scientific, our primary goal is to deliver the advantages of R&D to the underrepresented groups and underrepresented areas to be able to cultivate ideas from conception to fruition. So you have a lot of our people in particular that have ideas, but don't have the resources, access, and really the mentorship and just the thought and people saying that you can to be able to go to take it. And also you have intellectual property, things of that nature. So, you know, a lot of us, and I want you to vibe me on this, you know, we get to certain heights in this world and, you know, we feel that we've made it. And what happens is there's a knowledge loss and the feeling like, oh, I'm over here now and y'all can get yours. But there needs to be more of us that take the stance. And in my humble opinion, okay, I've gotten to this, but how can I now carve out a niche that is my own, where I own? I'm the one providing funding. I'm not at the mercy of these other entities that don't have my best interests at heart. And I can put a smile on that young girl, young man's face that has an idea, and I can say, I can get you from point A to point B. Right. So all that to say, and I don't want to hijack the show or anything, is what is your thoughts about carving out a new reality that's outside of the general veins that we may go through in academia to do something greater than we thought we could have?
Right. No, I'm really, really happy that you probed this. So every night whenever I get out of the lab, I go home, I live by myself. So I have like all this area just to think. And I'm like, I feel like I'm called to something big. And I'm just like, the way that my cards have played out, the way that everything is lined up, it would literally take like hours for me to like explain it. But the way that everything is lined up in my life, I'm like, I'm here to provide an opportunity for someone else to grow and to flourish. And so I really feel like it's important to us as Black people, as minorities, to be able to pull up our people. Because at the end of the day, whenever you think about science and you think about medicine and you think about technology, a lot of the stuff that's being developed isn't necessarily being developed for us. And a lot of times it's actually being developed to counter effect us. So it's actually being built to not help us at all. And so whenever you think about that, and then you think about just like the couple of African Americans and like a couple of different minorities that are in positions of power in science, and to see them like plugged into like the university system, to see them plugged into like different positions that are almost hiding them and they're not actually reaching out to help them, it's almost a little bit frustrating, because I'm like, there's so many different young minds out there that could benefit from you actually going out and helping them and pulling them out. And the opportunities that you have where you're at in your position of power, and the fact that you're actually not using it to your advantage, is one of the most infuriating things. Yeah. And so I'm not fully aware of how I'm going to get there, but I just know that I am. And I think that's one of the ways that I can continue to grow. I feel like we can never reach a finish line in life. And I feel like on my pursuit of finding how I'm going to actually impact the change that I want to see, I'll figure it out. And then the day that I do, hopefully I can change someone's life. So.
Beautiful.
Awesome.
That's wonderful, because we definitely want to help you do that.
Yes. Yes, sir.
Scientific, that's like Jabril said, that's the whole point of what we are as a business and as an entity. I want to ask you, I know we're on a limited time, but I want to ask you just about your mentors and the people that have influenced you. Who can you say have been those mentors or that support system that has got you to where you are now, and continuing to do that for you?
So I believe I've had a mentor of impact at each stage in my life. So for instance, whenever I was in undergrad, I can be honest, I struggled in undergrad. In between playing sports and then losing sports, which also came with the loss of an identity. So I played basketball since I was like 5 years old. So whenever I actually lost basketball, I lost like a piece of my identity. And I actually had to go on like a pursuit of just finding myself and finding out what I liked specifically. But what I'll never forget is I had a professor, and he actually was my organic chemistry professor. And I remember I was in class and I was struggling a little bit, but I always sat in the front of the class and I always put effort forth. So an issue that I always see plaguing our community, especially after I've like taught courses as like a TA and stuff like that, is typically whenever we're struggling, we want to hide because we're embarrassed. So I feel like imposter syndrome just takes over completely because we feel like we don't belong. Whenever you compare it to the corresponding white student, whenever they're struggling, they will bother the TA incessantly, like constant emails. I've been on the receiving end of it. I'm like, yo, like you, like there's been times where I've been like, you're a lost cause. Why are you still emailing me? But they literally never give up. But like us as a community, it's just like that imposter syndrome just takes over and we just tend to want to give up. And so this professor, he saw me in the library consistently working. He saw me in class consistently at the front of the classroom. And he was like, hey, if you come into my office, I will help you. He was like, I will figure out some way, shape, or form to make this stick. And just like that desire to help make it stick, it's what was able to actually show me that I was good at chemistry. So it's just like I had to think about it in a different way. So what I'm able to do, and I feel like this is what differentiates me from my colleagues, is I'm able to identify molecules in my head as 3D structures. So typically as a chemist, you see stuff as 2D and you see it as flat. Whenever you're, especially at like the higher levels, and if you're able to identify something as 3D in your actual mind, that's what changes stuff and allows you to see things a little bit more easier. Right. So whenever he was able to say, hey, like look at this as, you know, a winding highway, it'll be able to stick in your mind a little bit better. So just like his ability to put the effort forth, because at an Ivy League institution, he was one of the top research professors in that department. For him to actually put the effort forth to set me aside and help me, it literally changed my life.
That's not common.
No,
True, yeah.
No. Especially now that I see how like professors at my university now brush off students.
Yes.
Like, wow.
The senior lecturers are the best. The senior lecturers are the ones that really go in terms of teaching.
Right. So in undergrad, it was definitely him. And then right now in my PhD, I have what I call a life mentor. So someone that helps me in my projectile, like in my daily life. And then I have like my actual mentor in terms of science. So my PhD advisor, I lucked up. I lucked up big time. So I have a PhD advisor that's hungry. So typically PhD students, they'll join a lab of a professor that's already well known. Yeah. And occasionally I think that's a mistake, because whenever you join these senior faculty, they don't really have the desire to push forth and actually try to chase after a lot of different novel research ideas, because they already have established funding. So there's no need for them to take risks. So I actually joined our department the same year that my PhD advisor joined the department as a new faculty. So he was fresh out of his postdoc. So his hunger matched my hunger. And so he was able to kind of train me one-on-one as a PhD student. So I was almost able to grab every piece of knowledge that was fresh out of his mind. So just like the impact that he's had on me as a PhD candidate has been insane. So he's literally one of the best mentors. And then I have a life mentor that's actually guided me in a lot of my community outreach activities. So she's put me out there in terms of outreach into the Oklahoma City community for girls and different girls, minority girls, and helping them out with science. So I feel like mentors are important. And I feel like one of the most important things as us, like as established scientists or becoming established scientists, is actually making ourselves available to be mentors and giving advice, because there's not enough people that are actually willing to give their time. And I feel like giving your time is almost a duty, especially as people of color in science.
Mm.
You know, when you talked about a duty to mentor, especially those who look like us. If you were to come across a young black girl, say someone that's your sister's age,
Mm-hmm.
and they wanted to go into science or they wanted to go into chemistry, what would you tell that young black girl that wants to go into chemistry? What would you say to her?
I think I would tell that's my sister's age. So she's about a sophomore, junior in high school. So I think the first piece of advice I would tell her is that she has to work hard. One of the biggest mottos in life that I believe in is that nothing worth having is easy. And I feel like what's really plaguing our younger generation, what are they calling it these days? So there's the millennials. And I know I'm grouping the millennials.
That's us. So it's Gen X.
Yeah. So I feel like what's really, really plaguing Gen X right now is they feel like stuff should be just like given to them and just like handed over. It's like, oh, I did this, I did X, Y, Z, so I deserve to have this. And it's like, no, sis, you got to work. You got to consistently work hard. You got to be one of those quote unquote crazy people that spends 8 to 10 hours in the library. Because at the end of the day, you're at a disadvantage being Black. You're at a disadvantage being a woman. So to this day, and it hurts my soul. So I've won a fair amount of awards, and every time I win something, I always hear of at least one person tell me I didn't deserve it. Or I always hear of another person telling me, oh, she only got that because she was Black and she was a girl. And it's like, really? Like that's what we're going to play? Like, you saw me work. You saw me put in the effort. And still and yet you want to deduce my success to me being a Black and a woman. But before it was like, okay, I don't deserve to be here because I'm Black and a woman. Now I don't deserve to get awards for what I've done while being here because I'm Black and a woman. So it's like, what am I doing? It's like, I can never win. And so I think I would tell her that you have to work hard, but you also have to put on some earmuffs, because you're going to have people challenging you. You're going to have people questioning your knowledge. So I've literally gotten disrespected in seminars before, because a person didn't like what I was asking them, but let someone else that was white and a male ask that same question and be like, oh, that's a great question. But since it came from me, I get disrespected for asking it. So I feel like the two most important things that I would tell her is that you got to work hard, and you got to have your earmuffs. You got to have your earmuffs on and kind of block out the negativity, because it's going to come.
Absolutely.
Make sure you put that on social media, Jabril. You got to have your earmuffs on while you're working hard.
Bro, I got, hold on. I got you. Hold on. Watch this.
That's
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I got like 13 post-worthy things. If I may add, one thing going forward. So in the U.S., us as Black people, a lot of times we have a tendency to call ourselves minorities. And I think one thing that plagues us is that we're very short-sighted in terms of us as a people universally, and where we are the majority. Going off of that, it's very important, in addition to putting your earmuffs up, on that you have knowledge of self and you have knowledge of your history. So what happens is we think that when it comes to STEM, that is a white construct.
Yeah.
That it's something that stems from the white mind or the non-black mind, and that we get or come into by some, good faith, or that we're allowed to do so. But when you look at the history of us as a people, we are those who were the mathematicians of which those European powers came to and learned things. So, and when you look at all those things that are practical in the applications of everyday life, from the traffic light, something simple, to filaments and light bulbs and other things, we have made the world go, and have been very accomplished when it comes to it. So what happens is when you have unlocked your mind to understand, dang, I am descendant of those who did great things, and I am connected to those who are doing great things, you have forfeited really your card or your ability to be mediocre once you find out better.
Yeah.
And to do so is to underachieve. So it's putting on the earmuffs, but understanding that they have no base for what they say.
Right.
Not just oh, this is true, or this is to hurt me, I'm putting the earmuffs on. No, you are baseless in what you say, and you're jealous or envious of what I have. So you got to put the color on it from what I do, because could have done the same thing as you, but because you didn't get it, it got to be because I'm black.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? It has to be because I'm black. So just to add to your point, you said a lot of things, but that's why it's so important. And I love this platform, because what happens is, for those, and as we continue to grow and mature in our show and mature in what we're doing, we want to highlight that, yes, we are scientists. We speak well. We are doing things that can be world changing, and as we approach those problems and issues that plague society, and we can add value in various realms. So I encourage you to keep doing what you're doing, sis. I'm very proud of what you've given. It's funny that you went into getting awards, because one of my questions was, you being very decorated, how have you stayed focused and maintained your level of humility? But I think you took it in another realm, and was even more powerful in the sense that you talked about being steadfast.
Right.
And really keeping along that. So, I'm very proud to have had you on the show. I hope you will come back and do a part 2. Just keep pushing. Anything we can do to help, like I said, that we've kind of connected, and we hope to just kind of build on this connection going forward. So thank you so much for gracing us with your presence. We really appreciate it.
Definitely. Thank you guys for having me. This has been amazing.
No problem. Thank you. Awesome. Tariq?
Yeah, so we're gonna close. We're gonna come to the conclusion of the show now. I want to add to, just to reiterate what Jabril said, is to thank you for taking the time out. I know you're busy on this Tuesday evening to join us on our 3rd episode on OMSTV live on YouTube. One of the last things I want to ask you is, and it goes back to your humility. What does science mean to you? Like, if someone was to randomly ask you, Ari, what is science and why is it important to you? What would you tell them?
So to me, science is beautiful. One of the things that always gets me to come back to science. So I've had opportunities where I've been recruited by a couple of different companies on Wall Street because they want to have like a scientific mind inside of that business aspect. But it's hard for me to make that jump, because I just don't have the desire to, because there's beauty in science, and there's innovation in science. And I'm very, very faith-based. I'm not ashamed about it. I'm very open with it.
Go ahead.
So my faith is found, it has a direct correlation to science. Whenever I see something happening in my reaction class, or I make a new compound, or I make a new discovery, I'm like, someone gave me this ability. Someone put these puzzle pieces in the universe and organized them in such a way for me to come to this conclusion.
Go ahead.
And it's really, it makes me want to come back for more. Cause I'm like, okay, what can I find next? What else is in the pipeline? What else has my God put there for me to find.
Yes.
And so I feel like that's really why I study science. That's why I feel like science is one of the most beautiful things to pursue in this life, because there's just a constant will going. So
definitely. And how can people reach you or learn more about you? Like, what are your social media handles?
So I'm very, very active on Instagram. So I believe my Instagram handle is at __ Ari Hunter. So ARIHUNTER. And honestly, I'm probably one of the most readily available people via email. So if you just Google me, my email will pop up on various platforms. So yeah.
Awesome. And just kind of a takeaway to those who are watching. What do you say to all the inspiring scientists out there? What would you like them to take away from this live session?
I feel like one of the main things I want them to take away is just the community. So if you see, I didn't know either of you guys about 4 days ago, but the fact that growth comes from teamwork, growth comes from community. So reach out to your community, be a helping hand, be helpful to those that are like you and that are pursuing the same things as you. Everything in life doesn't have to be a competition. We can help bring each other up. So
right. Definitely. And that's the beauty of science. You know, science is always a system or a structure that pulls on something else.
Yes.
It's not there's nothing in science that stands alone.
Yes.
Something that latches on to something else, binds to something else, hooks onto something else. There's always something.
Yes.
You know, so we definitely appreciate you for coming on to the show again. Jabril, is there anything you'd like to add real quick?
You know I gotta do it, Tariq. You know I gotta do it. Family, those watching and everything, this has been another installment of the STEM Files on OMSTV. Just going through how you can get in touch with and follow Original Man Scientific. Our website is www.omansci. That's the first 3 letters of science, omansci.com. Facebook is at omansci. Instagram at OMScientific, and Twitter at OMScientific. One more time, www.omansci.com, Facebook at omansci, Instagram and Twitter at OMScientific. Also Instagram at OMS_TV. This has been awesome. I've learned an awful lot, you know, talking about that community. When I was at my freshman year at Penn, I did this leadership program before the fall called Pinnacle. And one of the things that one of the leaders talked about was respect your conglomerate. And what she was saying was, when you have a conglomerate or a network, is that your network is your everything. Yes. And that it makes or breaks you as a professional, but particularly as those who want to have a lasting impact and leave a legacy for our people going forward. We have to be connected. And I'm a firm believer that we're not always so much disunited as we are disconnected as a people, and that we don't know one another and know what each other is doing. So I have had an awesome time. It's just been amazing. And like I said, we hope you all continue to watch. Please power smash that like button, share, rewatch with your own conglomerates and networks. And we will continue to bring you what's live in STEM going forward.
That's right. Well, once again, thank you, Ari, for joining us on the STEM Files like I want to say again, no longer on Blog Talk Radio.
No, sir.
YouTube, OMSTV. This has been a great episode. I just want to go ahead and just reiterate what Jabril said. I loved it. I look forward to having you on again. If there's anything that you need from or this particular network, just go ahead and let me know. I'll be definitely reaching out to you as well as Jabril, just to kind of help you in your journey. And definitely. All right. So thank you again to everyone who tuned in. This has just been another cracking opening of the STEM Files. I am Tariq Muhammad, aka Magna Cardiac, and I have Jabril, aka Brilliant Engineer.
Yes, sir.
Peace, everyone.
Bye.
Deuces.